Liam Spratt, you commentated on Wexford from Tipp and Tipperary. What's that like? You know, you're from the area. It must be very hard to kind of keep your composure as the game's going on.
It can be a little bit hard, all right, Shane, but I've done a good few games for BBC Northern Ireland, and I've actually enjoyed them more because you're neutral, so it's much easier to do, I feel. You know, because obviously you got wound up in the passion being a Wexford man and a proud Wexford man. You're obviously going to get swept in the passion, and you saw the Wexford people today. I'm no different than them. You know, the atmosphere that they brought, and yeah, it's difficult. But look, you know, on a day when you're beaten by just a couple of points, when you know you could have won, compared to a day when you're well beaten, it's a world apart, world of difference.
And like the last few minutes, is it hard for you to even get the words out of your mouth? Because sometimes I've come in and done a bit of co-commentary and you start tripping over your words because there's so much excitement going on.
Not really, because you know you have to keep going, because you know you're painting a picture for people at home that might be driving in the car listening to you. And so you're really painting it's like a blank canvas in front of you, so you're painting the picture for the people that are in hospital and sick. So no, I don't find that difficult at all. I find losing difficult.
Yeah. Well, on that then, what are your initial thoughts of where the game was won and lost today?
I think Wexford made a few mistakes. I would give a lot of credit to Tipperary. I fancied Wexford, but I did say to you before the game that Tipperary could win it by 7 or 8 points because they were a decent team that won the All-Ireland in 2016. You don't just suddenly disappear. Liam Sheedy came in. I believe he wouldn't have come in if he didn't feel that he could have done something with this team. He's not that foolish. And it was proven today that Ronan Marr was absolutely outstanding in the last 10 minutes, and his brother Pádraig alongside him. You know, that much vaunted half-back line is probably the best in hurling in my opinion. And then, you know, the subs, we were talking about it, the subs, Willie Connors, Mark Keogh, Jake Morris, they made their mark. You know, there was a couple of questionable referees' decisions. Jake Morris's goal should have been allowed at the end, in my opinion. Conor MacDonald might have been brought down for a penalty here, but it's very hard for the referee. Davy Fitz acknowledged after in the media centre, and you know, I suppose the overriding feeling is that Wexford could have won the game. The reality is that Tipperary dug deep to win the game.
Yeah. And did you get the sense from interviewing David Fitzgerald after the game that he wants to stay on for another year, or do you think the toll of going cross country and it's quite a trek, that would be too much?
He absolutely loves Wexford, and I think that one of the reasons he loves Wexford is because nobody's really put that much pressure on him to achieve. Because look at Liam Donald brought Wexford so far, but he brought Wexford that further, you know, that professional element to the approach to the game. He's brought that, and I have a sneaky feeling in the cold of winter when he settles down that he might say to himself, you know, find 1 or 2 players, we're not far off, you know, and why should I let somebody else come in maybe next year and do that job? You know, and the immediate people you'd be talking about down in Wexford would be Derek McGrath or somebody like that, because I don't think we have anybody in Wexford that's capable of taking on the team.
How close to their best level do you think Wexford played today?
Yeah, I think they played. I thought they played awful well. I mean, to score 320, if you played with club games, if you scored 320, you'd expect to win a game, Cham, and that's probably the most disappointing aspect of today's game for him. When he sits down and analyses the mistakes that they made. You know, I don't like to see a team going down to 14 players, because I think it galvanises a team, and I think that psychologically when you're on the field as part of a 14-man team, you say, well, I'm going to have to work harder now. You know, that whole cycle. And how often have we seen it?
Yeah.
You know, we've seen it time and time again. Even the Galway minor team that went down to 14 players. God, I feel sorry for that young fella missing an All-Ireland, by the way, that centre-back, Lynn. But, you know, we've seen it time and time again, and you know, I think Tipperary showed, whilst people would have said that Wexford would have run Tipperary off their feet in the last 10 minutes, it was actually vice versa. But then sometimes when a team gets a run on you, you don't look as fit anyway. You know, I think that happens.
I think Tipp started to use the ball a bit better when they knew they were down a man.
They were clever with the ball. They pinged it to the corners. Yeah, pinged it to the corners. There's no point in hitting down on the full back, and they pinged it to the corners. And I thought they were very clever, but really it was their half-back line. How often has that half-back line bailed them out? In my opinion, that half-back line were outstanding in the last 10 minutes.
Did you think that, you know, John McGrath got his second yellow card, and rightly so? I mean, he had to go, there's no complaints there. And then Wexford went and scored 1-2, and it was 5 points ahead, and Tipp were going to have to play, including injury time, a half an hour down a man. Did you kind of think, like you yourself, did you think that it was there at that point?
No, because what I've said to you before, I'm always worried about the team going out of 14 players. I always think that it gives them that little bit of lift where we're going to have to work harder. And they readjusted very quickly. Liam Sheedy and his sideline, to be fair, readjusted to the loss of the player. But the turning point in the game for me was when Wexford got the second goal. Tipperary turned it around to a 6-point swing.
Yeah.
That was when the game is analysed, which it will be, and broken down, that for me was the crucial turning point in the game. The Wexford didn't drive on when they got that second goal, strangely enough. They made a lot of fumbling mistakes, a couple of loose passes, handed Tipperary points at crucial times of the game.
It's interesting just looking at the stats here now that in the last 15 minutes, including injury time, like from a 61st minute on, Wexford only had 4 shots and 3 of them were frees even. And not only that, the last score from play was that Conor MacDonald goal, which seemed to suggest that Wexford were going to put on. Like, considering how Wexford had held out Kilkenny late on and held their nerve, it just seems quite strange.
Yeah, I think Sean Murphy was an awful loss. You know, when he went off, he came into the game struggling with an injury. It was an awful loss. Jack O'Connor obviously struggling with an injury. Rory O'Connor, like, to take off those two guys, particularly Rory O'Connor. I would have thrown Cathal Dunbar on sooner because he's a ball of speed.
Yeah.
And I think he would have troubled. But having said that, the Tipperary half-back line were brilliant. I think we made them look good at the end too, because there's no point in hammering balls down on Ronan Maher and Pádraig Maher and Brendan Maher. They're just going to swallow them up, and I think that's what happened. I think we lost our direction a little bit at the end, because we were a bit like Kilkenny were against us in the drawn game in Wexford Park when they went searching for goals when there was time to get points. There was a little bit of that, and we cleared the ball down there, and there was one loose pass, gave Tipperary the initiative, and Tipperary drove on. Look, well, we're trying to find excuses for Wexford here, you know, instead of praising Tipperary. Not instead of praising Tipperary, but you know what I'm trying to say. Tipperary deserve an awful lot of credit today, because Liam Sheedy knew the pressure he was on going back to Tipperary. It's probably the hardest county to win over the supporters, Tipperary. I might be wrong in saying that, but Liam Sheedy put his name and put his reputation on the line when he came back. He knew most of those guys. He knew all the stories, rumblings in the background of fellas not putting in commitment and drink and all of that kind of stuff that was going on. But boy, did they play today for the jersey. And you know, Bubbles was great in the second half. Might have had a quiet first half, but Noel McGrath was outstanding. 4 points from midfield in a tight pressure keg like today.
I thought Wexford were very clever in the first half. Looked like the more likely side. You know,
they were running off the shoulder. They were playing the spaces.
I loved what Kevin Foley was doing as well with the sweepers. So Tipp had Pádraig Maher as a spare man back there, and from the Wexford puck outs, he just sat back there. When Tipperary had a puck out, Kevin Foley came out from the D and he went out and he marked largely Michael Breen. So it was like he's a spare man during play back, but when the puck out is there, they're not allowing Tipperary any sort of an outball. So I just thought that was very clever. It didn't happen in the second half, but I don't know, would you have too many qualms about what happened on the sideline?
Not really, because this development with Davy coming in has taken 3 years. I would have been as big a critic as anybody with the sweeper hurling. Tom Dempsey and Billy Byrne were with me. We're the same, but we've kind of been won over. And Davy, you were in the press conference when Davy said it, you know, he's a pain in his backside with people talking about it. And you just said it, you know, with Simon Donoghue up attacking, it allows that freedom rather than the 15 on 15. It's gone out of hurling anyway, Shane. Every county's doing it. There
was actually one point when I think it was just after the 50th minute and Wexford had gone 5 points ahead. Paul Morris had a shot around the 45, but actually inside him was Damien Reck, and this is a lad who was, you know, ostensibly a corner back. He was inside the 14 on his own, waving for it, and that could have put Wexford 8 points ahead, and at 14 men would have been very hard there. How much has the Wexford public taken to this team? Because, you know, it's 3 years coming, that Leinster title. 2018 I thought was very poor, the way they limped out against Clare in the quarter final.
Ran out of gas.
Playing some fairly horrible hurling that day as well. It was terrible to watch as a neutral. But how much have the public taken to this team?
Well, you saw the response today, didn't you? The crowds that were here today. They're a proud county. We've a big population, people forget, you know, it's the biggest county area wise in Leinster. It's 150,000 population, but that doesn't disguise the fact that they're fantastic supporters, and I think the purple and gold colour brings that extra special colour to a ground. Look, they bought into it. They'll be disappointed to be all travelling down the road tonight. And before the game, Davy was warning us, you know, not to get too upset if we do lose. You know, it's another gradual step. I'm sure people will be hoping that he will stay on to take it that little bit further. And maybe the players themselves today, getting to such a high level, now realise that perhaps they can get to an All-Ireland final or even win an All-Ireland.
Well, it's just shown in the last 2 games, if you can live with Kilkenny and live with Tipperary.
Well, they've beaten all the main counties this year, Shane.
Yeah.
They've beaten Tipperary, they've beaten Cork, they've beaten, the major Galway, they've beaten the major counties this year, and that's a big plus. That hasn't happened in a long time in Wexford.
And the age profile of the team is very good. Like, if you look at some of the main players that everyone in the public will know, Conor McDonald, Lee Chin, Matthew O'Hanlon, and so on and so forth, they're all mid-20s, and then you've got
Paul Morris is the longest on the team.
Yeah.
He's Paul Morris is there since 2010.
And they're a Croke Park team as well, as we've seen in the last couple of games as well.
Yeah.
Like, the future is very bright.
Yeah, it is very bright. The big question now remains: will Davy Fitzgerald stay on to bring it forward, or if he doesn't stay on, who will bring it on? The obvious candidate, as I said, is Derek McGrath, because he lives just down the road. I'm not sure if he wants to join that pressure of intercounty hurling again, but it's very close to him. But there is nobody in Wexford, Shane, in my opinion, that is capable of taking on that team. And it really will depend. There's a massive bond between Davy and the players, and that's genuine. What he said in the press conference, genuine, because I've seen it. I've seen the way he protects them. He's been very good to the people. He's been very good to charity organisations in the county. He's been very good to supporters generally in the county. And you know what? I was apprehensive when he came in, because I knew I was going to have to deal with him. But I have to say, he's been a proper gentleman to deal with. Okay, we've had our 1 or 2 little set tours, but we've argued it out. And sure, look, it's a sad day for Wexford. It's a brilliant day for Tipperary.
And just then, a final question: do you think this will go down as one that got away, or this can happen again and Wexford can kick on?
No, it'll definitely go down as one that got away, Shane. No question about it. It'll definitely go down as one that got away. They had the game in the palm of their hand. As I said to you before, if you scored 320, you expect to win a game, wouldn't you?
You sure would.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Shane.
Thanks, Shane.